Captain Edwards, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. And let's start with how things are going in Bloomfield Township as businesses are beginning to open up.
Well, we haven't had many health and safety violation complaints. In the beginning, we were having several of them every day. It took up a big percentage of our job. Now, though, it's been 3 or 4 days since we've had any complaints at all. We've had a couple businesses that are opening up that we've gotten some complaints from the either employees in the business or customers that they're not opening up quite properly. So we've went in and talked to them about what the law is. Again, we're still telling our officers to approach it from a education standpoint and a voluntary compliance.
So you've got people coming in that are saying somebody didn't have a mask on, or somebody wasn't wearing gloves, or they went into an establishment and there wasn't social distancing, and they dialed 911.
We did receive a lot of those complaints initially. Now it's more that this business shouldn't be open and they're open now, or they're opening improperly. They have to monitor the 50% capacity rules. But we haven't been having a lot of complaints of masks issues that we've had to deal with.
You sometimes wonder, and I don't want to characterize the people that are making those phone calls, because we encourage citizens to let people know, let our law enforcement officials know when they see something. If anything, we need more eyes and ears around our community. But are some of these complaints maybe another business that didn't get to open, seeing someone do something down the street and then they're starting to complain?
Yes, I think that has a lot to do with it. Either employees that are nervous about going back to work, or other businesses that want to make sure that they're being treated fairly or following the same rules. And so it's our job to keep the peace in the community.
Well, you got to be happy today you're not the chief of the Royal Oak Police Department, because do you know the chief over? You guys all know each other. You probably know the chief over there. Your friend is going to have his hands full, because the Imagine Theater has decided on Friday. I don't know if you saw the story, but they've decided on Friday they're going to open up. And they're going to do an event. It's a worthy event, but regardless of how worthy the event is, they are going to open up. They're going all Owasso barbershop on us, and they're going to open up on Friday. And the governor's office was quoted that the provisions for opening up indoor movie theaters are not in place yet, and they're going to open up. And I assume you haven't had to deal with anything like that in your community.
Well, nothing that's made the news media yet.
So you have. So we just say, you're always great to have on. Hey, share whatever you want to share with us, or whatever anecdotes you want to share with us.
Oh, just that there is businesses that are opening up that are kind of pushing the rules, and we have to talk to them and try to get everybody on the same page. And the governor puts out a lot of new rules, and our officers have a hard time keeping up with them, because they're kind of every day there's a new rule coming out. But I mean, that's our job, is to have the internet on our phone and pull it up. And, so we'll go to the businesses and talk to them about what the rules are, and look up the rules with them and try to make sure, like I said, getting voluntary compliance, education.
Well, and I assume once you get out and you start communicating with businesses, everyone says, okay, well, thanks for the visit. We're going to follow the rules. I can tell you there are a lot of them. Tyler and I, what was it, Thursday last week, Tyler? We read all the executive orders that are still in place. And it gets complicated. And by the way, These are on the web. If you go to civiccentertv.com, I think we have a link in there in the state of Michigan to the current rules that are in place. But there's still a lot of them, and a lot of them are very complicated as to whether this was canceled or that was canceled, and there's a lot of nuance in there. So again, it took us, I think, a half an hour to read all of them on the show.
Yeah, yep, we're doing the same thing, and we got to keep up with them and make sure all the businesses are on the same page. And it's starting to shift the responsibility from law enforcement to the health and safety department.
So it's starting to feel more like normal when I'm driving around. I couldn't pull out of my driveway this morning, which is the way it should be, because where I live, I have a lot of traffic on the main highway. And it seems to me that we're getting back to our normal traffic flows. Within your jurisdiction is Telegraph, one of the busiest roads in Metro Detroit. Are you seeing the same thing, sir?
Yeah, definitely increase in traffic and an increase in commerce, which is a good thing for our economy. You know, everybody's got to get back to life as best they can and get the system going again. We're definitely seeing a lot more people out and about and doing stuff. And our graphs for the state are very impressive. You know, our new cases every day are way lower than a lot of other states. And so we've been doing a good job at the social distancing and wearing our masks and washing our hands and all that stuff.
So we have had a funeral for George Floyd. Everyone has seen the video. I watched it again on television last night. Still continues to be very, very troubling to anyone who watches it. And they continue to release a little bit more video. And the video we saw yesterday on television, it may have been out there for a while, but I hadn't seen it. Involved a number of citizens in very close proximity to the officers, pleading with them to take some action to release Mr. Floyd from the ground, and it just, they didn't respond at all. So we see that video, and then last night we had detailed, virtually frame by frame video of the incident in Atlanta, and we're able to visualize exactly what happened from second to second. Have you seen both of those videos? Do you have any thoughts about those two events and either similarities or differences in those?
Well, the George Floyd event is certainly disturbing for anybody who saw it, and it certainly sent waves through our country, and it certainly is going to change things in law enforcement, and we've felt changes already. And I know there's a bill in Lansing right now with the Senate that's looking at making some reforms, setting some minimum standards for law enforcement, focusing on de-escalation, implicit bias, procedural justice, and mental health reforms, which are the big things in the bill. And all of those things are important conversations that law enforcement agencies need to look at within themselves. And which I would like to have an opportunity to talk about us for a second here. We recently went through an accreditation process, which the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police started a couple of years back. And it's a voluntary thing that agencies can get accredited. And part of the accreditation process is that you have to have de-escalation training as part of your yearly annual training, and also implicit bias. And so we've been doing that since we've been accredited last year. And I think that's a good safety or a check on a law enforcement agency to make sure that they're doing the right thing. And I'm proud to say that, you know, we recently got accredited, and we've had those procedures implemented in our department. And so I think this law that sets minimum standards for agencies is a good step in the right direction.
You know, I think we now have a better understanding because those two events are very different. At least I have a better understanding of the challenges that law enforcement has. We certainly know that when you're out on the streets enforcing the law, the police officers are targets. They have to be careful because they are on the front line. And they are going to have to respond to critical situations, put themselves in the line of fire, and just deal with escalating complicated situations. And we certainly saw that in the Atlanta case, because that thing, I mean, that started out very calm, and the police were calm, and the gentleman that was killed were very calm as well. And then the thing escalated when he attempted to break free and didn't want to be cuffed and grab the taser. We've all seen the video, and then we see him being shot after he shoots his taser back at police. But you just think of the adrenaline. I know when I do the radio show, I drink some coffee, I have an adrenaline buzz. You are at your highest level of alertness, if you will, when you're doing a radio program. I can't imagine what it's like in a situation where you are arresting somebody, knowing the history of other events that have happened during your police career, and then things start to get complicated. How do you train to that specifically? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. The Supreme Court made a decision on Graham versus Connor several years back and spoke exactly to that. And they said that to judge a use of force incident, you have to consider the rapidly evolving nature of an incident. and the severity of, it can be a life and death incident. So the severity of the incident. And you can't judge the incident with the hindsight of 2020. You have to consider it from the officer's perspective, and you have to consider the totality of the circumstances, everything that the officer can see what's going on. And because police officers are thrown in dangerous situations that can explode quickly, and they have to make a split-second decision. And to judge it with the hindsight of 2020, well, if they could have done something different, then it would have had a different outcome. Would be a tough standard to put on an officer. So the Supreme Court ruling is how we train. And well, we have to train for rapidly evolving situations and to prepare to try put as much effort as we can to de-escalate the situation from the beginning and take that.
So how did you see that one? I mean, Mr. Brooks shot back with a taser, but at that time he had shot his taser, and then it looks like there's like a quarter of a second. It looks at that point like the police officer then draws his weapon and shoots, which it doesn't look good. How did you see that video, and what's your analysis of what happened?
I don't know the whole story, and so I'm not in a position to give my opinion on it. There's a lot of things that come to mind that are questions. Exactly what the officer knew. I mean, did he know that it was the taser that he was using? And there's a perception and reaction time in law enforcement, or in any situation. If somebody throws a ball to you, you automatically put your hands up, and if the ball's on the string,
right,
the ball bounces back. The other guy his hands are coming up. So it takes your brain just a second to react to a situation. And that perception and reaction time can be a factor in a situation like this where it's rapidly evolving.
Well, Captain Dan Edwards, I understand that Captain Edwards of the Bloomfield Township Police Department. Let's talk about cameras, because we had a lot of different views of that incident. Where is your department with cameras right now? Where do you have cameras, if you do? And can you give us any idea of what it's like across the other departments in our region?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the things. We just had our meeting with the chief of police this morning, Phil Langmeyer, and he brought up body-worn cameras. And we do not have them at our department right now. And the reason that we don't is throughout the state, several years back when they first started to become popular, a lot of agencies were very concerned with the freedom of information, which FOIA, or Freedom of Information, says that a law enforcement agency has to share information with the public. So if anybody wants to come in and get a copy of our camera footage, they can. The concern for law enforcement at the time was that there was no restrictions put on that. So if you see the neighbor, or you see the police over at your neighbor's house, and you want to see what happened, you can come into the police department and get a copy of a FOIA request for the footage, and you can see the nuances of the conversation about your neighbor's marriage and the fight that they just had. And we don't think that's fair to the public to have to release that information so that your nosy neighbor can see everything that's going on with you. So we asked Lansing to put some restrictions on the information that we could give out and not allow us to just give it out to somebody who's being nosy and just looking for dirt on somebody. And there should be a reason that somebody wants that information, or for a purpose, but just to be nosy. And I know Lansing has made some changes with that, and so we're going to relook at that again, because we want to get body-worn cameras. We've had cameras, to answer your question more directly, we have had cameras in our police cars for as long as I've been a cop. And they've been very beneficial to us because it shows exactly what's going on. And our officers do the right thing 99.99% of the time. And it's good to have those cameras that show that. And it's helped us out on citizens' complaints so many times. We can show the perspective of the camera to people. And so we want to take it to the next level and have the body-worn cameras. We have been concerned about those.
No, and I understand the concerns that anybody can FOIA content, but I hope you work through it, and we'll keep in touch with you and the other departments. Seems to me, based on the news of the past couple of weeks, that we're going to be seeing a lot more police officers wearing body cameras, and somehow we got to be able to protect the privacy of others. But it seems to me that we're going in that direction.
exactly what my chief just said this morning.
Okay. All right. Very good. Captain Dan Edwards, Bloomfield Township Police Department. Anything else you have for us today you want to share with people?
Well, our conversation, our chief's meeting was also about our animal welfare department. We had to close that down because of some budget restraints, and we've done some moving of funds around and doing more with less and contracting with other agencies. And it looks like we're going to be able to open our animal welfare department back up here at the start of next month.
All right. Well, that's good news. That's good news. And, we just want to keep reminding everybody, I'm sure you do as well, that as businesses open up, that it's the basics, it's the fundamentals right now that we need to, stay on top of. Obviously, always abiding by the law, but just, washing your hands and wearing the mask and doing those things that we all need to do to keep us healthy.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Captain Edwards, thank you very much. Good to be with you again.